Hi, I'm Ann Taylor Pittman, Executive Editor at Cooking Light, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be showing you a really fun idea for Thanksgiving. You know, this big food holiday that we're all freaking out about that's happening next week. I'm going to share with you an easy idea for a skillet green bean casserole. And what I love about this recipe is A, it's got a lot of make-ahead possibilities, and B, it won't hog your oven when you've got everything else going on in there. It just requires a couple of minutes under the broiler, but everything else happens stovetop. So it's really great for Thanksgiving when you realize you just don't have enough oven space. So green bean casserole, of course, starts with green beans. So I have some here that I've already pre-cooked. I blanched them. That just refers to placing the beans in boiling water and cooking them until they're crisp, tender. They're flexible but not mushy, and they're nice and bright green. So our original recipe, if you see our recipe for skillet green bean casserole, it calls for a pound of haricots verts, which are French green beans. They're those really slender, really skinny green beans that you see. A lot of times they come packaged in those microwave and bag packages, but regular green beans work also and are certainly more familiar, and sometimes what you want at Thanksgiving is just what's familiar. So we start with a pound of those. Like I said, I blanched these for about 5 minutes. I think the smaller, the haricots verts, take only about 3 minutes. And then I plunge these guys into ice water to stop the cooking. And then I drain them. Now you can do this and have these beans ready to go. You can do this 3 days ahead and just store them in the fridge in a Ziploc bag and they'll be fine. You might want to just slip a paper towel in the Ziploc bag to absorb any extra moisture. But that's a great thing that you can have done. It's ready to go on the big day. So if you're just joining us, I'm talking about skillet green bean casserole. We've talked about the green beans, it's the foundation. And another thing I love about this recipe is that it starts with fresh ingredients. So I know that there is a traditional green bean casserole out there that people love, but I really want to encourage you to make your own using fresh whole foods. And that's what we're doing here today. So I have green beans. Now I'm going to make what will be our topping. So we're not using the traditional topping that you often see in the regular green bean casserole recipe. Instead we're using whole wheat breadcrumbs that we're making using whole wheat bread. So I have 2 ounces of bread. I'm just going to put it in the food processor here. And we're going to make our own fresh breadcrumbs. So if you have some bread that's going stale, this is a great use for it. Or just the end pieces of the bread and the loaf of bread. And I don't want to pulverize these to powder. I want to leave a little bit of texture, which I've done here. And then I'm also going to add, this is a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh parsley. And then this is a garlic clove that I have grated. It will get incorporated in there in just a minute. Now I also have some Parmesan cheese, and this is the really nice Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese, which has those wonderful salt crystals and nutty, wonderful flavor. Regular Parmesan cheese will also work great. We have 1½ ounces. I'm using a microplane to do this. You know, for small jobs like this, I think the microplane is great. Again, I'm working with just 1½ ounces of cheese. I could get out my box grater. I love the box grater, but the microplane works really well. And I already had it out for grating the garlic cloves. So this should grate up to, if you were to pack it into measuring spoons, it should grate up to about 6 tablespoons. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons into my topping here in just a minute. That will be ready to go. And then we'll start assembling our casserole and making our sauce. So again, this is fresh, easy skillet green bean casserole that you can make for Thanksgiving and free up your oven for other needs. Okay, if there are a few little pieces that are bigger, that's okay. So, like I said, 2 tablespoons are going to go into the topping. So I have 2 ounces of whole wheat bread that I've pulsed into crumbs, 2 tablespoons of cheese, a 1/4 cup of parsley, 1 garlic clove, and now here I have a tablespoon of olive oil. It's just going to slightly moisten and help this crisp up once it goes under the boiler. Just going to pulse those things together to combine. And again, I'm not trying to pulverize and make powder. I want a little bit of texture because that's going to add a really nice crunch to the top of our casserole. So that's the topping. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. And now we're going to go over to the stove, where I have a 1/4 cup of yellow onion that I've chopped and sauteed with 4 ounces of just sliced white button mushrooms. You can use cremini mushrooms if you want. Those have a little bit of a richer flavor. These are just button mushrooms or white mushrooms. 4 ounces, so that's half of a standard carton of mushrooms that you buy. They're sauteed in 2 tablespoons of olive oil over medium heat for about 8 minutes. And then I have 1½ tablespoons of all-purpose flour. This is our thickener. So we're not using, condensed soup for this casserole. And by doing so, we keep things a lot fresher and a lot lower in sodium. So I'm just cooking this for a minute just to kind of slightly toast the flour and get it to kind of absorb the fat that we cooked the mushrooms in. Again, that was 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And now I have a combination of 1/2 cup of unsalted chicken stock. This is one of our favorite ingredients. It has great flavor. You find it right there on the soup aisle. It's unsalted, so you can be in control of your seasoning. And then a 1/4 cup of 2% milk. You can use 1% if you have it. You can use whole milk if you have it. It's only a 1/4 cup. It's there to add a little bit of richness and creaminess. I'm adding it just kind of slowly. Sometimes if I add this liquid all at once, the flour can kind of clump. So I'm just adding it gradually. It's already starting to thicken. And so that is the basis of the sauce for our green bean casserole. Let me turn my heat up just a little bit because I want it to bubble. While I'm waiting on that, I have here some other wonderful ingredients. One of my favorite things with mushrooms ever of all time is dry sherry. So this is a fortified wine with a really rich nutty flavor, and the flavor of dry sherry with mushrooms is incredible. 2 tablespoons of that go in. If you don't want to use the dry sherry, just add 2 more tablespoons of chicken stock. But if you have dry sherry, it's one of those things you buy for a recipe and then it's just sitting there on your shelf. If you have it, this is a great use for it.
What else can you use sherry for?
I love cocktails made with sherry because it's it's going to be a little bit lower than, say, a gin cocktail, a little bit lower in alcohol. But sherry, like I said, it's great with mushrooms. So I did a mushroom gravy that had a lot of sherry in it. We recently had some recipes, I think it was in the December issue, that use up dry sherry. I did this wonderful pear butter. It's like apple butter, but made with pears, and it included a fair amount of dry sherry. It was so good. So I highly recommend it. I think it's just called sherry pear butter. But anywhere you want to add a little richness, like if you're making a fettuccine with like a creamy sauce, add in a splash of dry sherry. It's just going to add a little richness that you can't put your finger on exactly. I have a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and that's all the salt we need. A 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and then an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. It's one of those ingredients that's great for creamy sauces. If you have fresh nutmeg that you can grate on a nutmeg grater, awesome. That would add a really powerful burst of flavor. So look at how nice this is. This is our sauce. Like I said, we're not using canned soup. We're starting with fresh ingredients, making our own sauce. It's going to have a lot more flavor, a lot more freshness, and a lot less sodium. I'll give you the numbers at the end. Okay, I have a little bit of cheese left over that I did not put into the topping. So that's going here into the sauce. So yummy, creamy, Parmesan rich sauce with that hint of sherry and nutmeg. It smells like heaven. Okay, and then the green beans. Again, we could have done this 3 days ahead. We could have had them cooked, and those go into the skillet. I'm going to toss them. This is a 10-inch skillet. I'm using cast iron because it can go under the broiler. Any sort of oven-proof skillet will work just fine. This is a 10-inch skillet, which ends up being the perfect size. Ha! I'm making a mess, sorry.
If you didn't have an oven-proof skillet, could you put it in a casserole pan?
You could put it in a casserole dish, just make sure that it is broiler safe. Some ceramics are not, most glass and Pyrex are. I would hate for your beautiful ceramics to not fare well under the broiler. It's only going under there for like 2 minutes, but you just need to be really careful. I don't have on an apron, so I'm trying not to splatter myself. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you see how luscious and creamy this is. I left the green beans whole because I think that's pretty. Of course, you see that makes it a little difficult to toss and stir. But you could have the green beans or chop them into like 2-inch pieces to make them a little bit easier to work with. Okay, yummy, luscious, creamy goodness. And you know, honestly, when you start with the fresh mushrooms, you end up with more mushrooms than you would if you were using the condensed soup. You like getting, I think people like getting that little, those little nuggets of mushrooms. So there, I have all that in the skillet, and now I'm bringing in my topping.
Ken says that it's fun to see everyone make a mess now and then.
Thank you. This is real,
This is a test kitchen.
This is real. I am definitely far from perfect.
Although you did wear your green blouse to make green beans.
You know what? I think that happened subconsciously, but I'm very happy that it did. So these are our whole wheat fresh breadcrumbs that we have tossed with a little bit of fresh garlic, some olive oil, some Parmesan cheese, parsley.
Looks so pretty.
That is wonderful. And this just goes under the broiler for a couple of minutes. So while I'm putting that in there, I'll recap some of the stuff that you can do ahead of time. Okay, so this is easy skillet green bean casserole. If you want to get a head start and a jump start on Thanksgiving, blanch your green beans about 3 days ahead, or 2 days ahead, or 1 day ahead, but you can go as far as 3 days ahead. So you want to boil them for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes till they're about the texture you like. Shock them, which means place them in cold water or ice water to stop the cooking. Drain them and then put them in a container or Ziploc bag and put them in the fridge for until you're ready to cook with them. You can also make the breadcrumb topping about 2 days ahead. So what I had in the food processor, the fresh breadcrumbs, the cheese, the garlic, the olive oil, you can have all that stuff mixed up together, store it in the fridge for a couple of days, and then just assemble everything just before you're ready to eat. And it will just need a little bit of stovetop heating, make your sauce, heat up the green beans, and pop everything under the broiler. Let me see if it's done. Maybe 1 more minute. It smells so good. The garlic smell is coming out. So it was just 1 garlic clove. The recipe calls for ½ a teaspoon. So it's just enough to give a little flavor without overwhelming you with that kind of raw garlic taste. So like I said, one of the great things about this recipe is that it mostly happens stovetop, because you know how it is on Thanksgiving Day. You've got so much stuff trying to fight for oven space.
Is this a vegetarian recipe?
This is not a vegetarian recipe as written. We used a little bit of chicken stock, but you could absolutely change that to vegetable stock. Now be careful, some vegetable stocks are really dark in color and it might make the sauce look a little dark, whereas you kind of want the sauce to look a little bit more creamy and beige. So I'm trying to think of brands that I know are lighter in color. I think Swanson is lighter in color. So that's just a tip that we've learned through years of doing photographs and stuff and trying to figure out why things look differently than we expect. Okay, so this guy's ready to come out of the oven. Perfect. Nice, crunchy, browned breadcrumb topping. The sauce is all bubbly and gooey.
Wow,
so there you go. That could add a fresh touch and an unexpected touch to your Thanksgiving dinner. Thanks so much for joining us. Please come back. We're going to have lots more Thanksgiving thoughts. See you next time.